Welcome to the More Than More podcast, where we discuss building meaningful, impactful businesses, careers, and lives through real estate. Everybody, Dylan here, joined by
Angela.
And we're jumping into our second episode of the Rethink Revisited miniseries.
Yes.
Super excited to put this all together. We talked a couple weeks ago about the first of the two entrepreneurial challenges, and we called that the ceiling of complexity. We didn't call it that.
We did not coin that phrase, no.
We borrowed the phrase. And we're going to jump into our second entrepreneurial challenge today. But first, I know I mentioned this earlier, it just seems that whatever I'm talking about, I start seeing all around me. I've had several conversations the last couple of weeks with agents where this idea of bumping up against the ceiling of complexity is exactly what they're experiencing.
What they're dealing with.
First 2-3 years and starting to get busy, or 15-20 years in the business and dealing with a whole nother level of complexity in their business. So it's fun to see, just because I think the best way to describe these is they're just universal, implicit. I don't know what the right word is here.
Entrepreneurial challenge. I mean, really, like if you were an entrepreneur, this is what you're going to deal with.
I think if we were
no matter what.
And if we were in a different business, I've got a feeling we'd be having the exact same conversation.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm in business planning season right now, just in general, and a lot of conversations with people, and a lot of it has been shifting their thinking when it comes to the complexities of what they're dealing with. And you really can see it no matter where you are in the business.
Which is why we're doing what we're doing here and revisiting the topic. And I guess we just jump into our second topic, which, and there's more of these. You and I were chatting earlier again about, I kind of want to cover 7 or 8 of these economic models of struggles. But I think these first two are absolutely foundational and fundamental. So if number one is that we gain in complexity as we grow our business and as the world around us changes, and that creates a ceiling where we bounce up against it. The second problem that we're going to encounter as we grow our business is equally universal, and it's going to be that we are going to come up against commoditization in the marketplace around us. And so we call this the Commoditization Trap. And I'll do my best to describe this very succinctly, and then maybe we can unpack it together. Good?
Yeah, that's good.
So the Commoditization Trap is, let's see how well I can do this. It starts with a business person that has an undifferentiated product or service. What they are is essentially what everybody else is, or what they're selling or providing to the marketplace is largely the same as what their competition is providing. And when you're undifferentiated, the process of commoditization is what you experience. And commoditization is just a fancy word to say that you get treated as a commodity.
Yes.
It's the process by which a product or a service becomes viewed or treated as I use the word mere commodity. And I'll have you define commodity for us.
Yeah. So the way that I can picture this in my mind, the way that solidifies it for me is the way that you described this to me early on. In a group of Connect, I believe it was, sitting on the whiteboard, you drew a black dot on the board and you said, "What is this?" We were all, I
totally forgot about that.
Very confused about your black dot on the board. Like, it's a black dot. Where are you going with this? And then he's like, "Well, hey guys, it's a soybean, obviously." So talking about soybeans is what solidified this for me. So you're saying, well, are you a soybean, right? Like, so, and then when people look at soybeans, you have a bag of soybeans worth $10. You have another bag of soybeans worth $8, whatever that may be. I'm totally wrong. Those are not differentiated in any kind of way. So what are you going to do as the consumer when you're looking at that product? You're going to buy the cheaper one. So commodity. And
the story is that soybeans and realtors aren't always that different.
Yeah.
Many realtors are just realtors, and there's not much that distinguishes us from other realtors, especially if we're not trained right. We're not running the business the way we've taught our agents to run them.
Agreed.
So commoditization is the process by which we get treated as mere commodities and therefore become sold or exchanged exclusively or primarily on the basis of the price that we're willing to offer, which is a very understandable outcome if what you are is no different than the person next to you. If two agents are showing up at a house, they're both presenting fundamentally the same CMA with, slightly
Feels
different
about
comps,
the same.
I guess. We're all getting the same professional photographers. We're all putting it on the same MLS, and we're marketing it in the same way on Zillow.
We're looking at the same comps, universally. Yep.
You'd be a bit of a dork if you got offended by the fact that your clients are like, well, but hold on, there's someone else that's
this guy's going to do it cheaper.
Significantly cheaper. So the downward forces of commoditization then are, and we'll dig into these more, but if we're moving forward as an undifferentiated product or service, the downward forces that we experience, for example, would be things like technology that's starting to take our data and make it more broadly accessible to the world. Disintermediation would be things like Zillow stepping in between us and the consumer. 10 years ago, we were dealing with empowered sellers, meaning all of a sudden they had access to online platforms to market their own properties, and they could jump on FSBO.com and do their own stuff, which was being the volume was up on that even higher because of strong market conditions, where it was just very, very easy to sell a house. So whether I'm a FSBO or I'm looking at two realtors and one of them super cheap, why, if it's so easy to sell the property, why would I
just do it on my own?
It's a lot easier to choose or choose the cheaper option. Increased competition was one of the downward forces of commoditization. We'd gone from 800,000 realtors all the way up to at that point 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Ironically, now we're dealing with 1.5 million. And then the introduction of a bunch of discount brokerage models was a big thing 10 years ago when we were talking about this.
Yeah.
So we're moving forward, we're undifferentiated, and we start to experience these downward pressures, which are intrinsic to marketplaces.
Yeah, no matter what industry you're in, there's going to be these different forces.
Well, because when you're out buying jeans or cars, are you wanting to pay more or less for them?
Yeah.
And so if, generally speaking, there's 6 car dealers and they're all selling the exact same car,
you're going to go where it's cheapest.
And why wouldn't you? And we all want this. So these are forces in the marketplace we want. We want new platforms. We want better technology. We want forces that make things better and more available and more accessible.
Absolutely.
And we prefer better market conditions.
Yes, we do.
But when those things happen and you're the business owner trying to create value, if you're undifferentiated, those forces will fundamentally commoditize you and your product. And that's going to mean that the customers that you're aiming to serve are going to prefer or lean towards the cheapest variation of what it is that you're offering.
So to be able to compete in that situation, really you have to, the choice that you're making there really is to compete based on price, if that's where you're going.
And that's the trap.
Yes.
And the commoditization trap is where we find ourselves stuck in what we call the race to the bottom.
Yes.
And in order to compete alongside other people that are also just like us, we must drop our price. And then when we drop our price, it just means they're inclined to drop theirs even further. And fundamentally what happens is you suck all of the revenue potential, all of the capacity for that industry to produce great businesses,
outcomes,
great profits and great outcomes get sucked out. And then there's more to the trap, because when you do that, when you drop your prices, let's say as a brokerage, if you drop your prices so low that all the agents join you, but now you have no money to hire great people or provide great training.
Any kind of value to them.
The trap perpetuates, because now not only can the way I got you was to drop my price, but now I don't have the resources to actually create value inside of my model.
Yeah.
So when the next person comes along and offers it even cheaper, I might lose a bunch of my agents to that person because I can't fundamentally provide great value to them.
Yeah.
And that story is very clear on the brokerage side.
Yes.
Because that's where you as agents are receiving the product.
Yeah.
But consider the exact same narrative is true of you as an agent providing value to the consumer.
Yep.
So the fundamental story of the commoditization trap is that every business person has a fundamental decision that they have to make. And that's the decision either to continue to compete as a commodity, product or service, and then compete on the basis of price, or to intentionally look at the environment and go, I need to find a way to segment myself from the sea of sameness. I need to provide specialized, value-driven service that consumers gladly pay a premium for.
Yes.
And the best example of this over the last 10, 15, 20 years would be Apple and PC. Apple took a lot of flack early on for choosing to invest in crazy ideas. I mean, I remember the first iPhone that came out. I honestly thought it was really stupid because there were no buttons.
It was definitely so different. I was not ready to jump then.
And I remember all the weird, nerdy Mac users back in the day. They were just strange people.
Yep, I was definitely a PC girl in college all the way.
Why would you want one of those things?
Yeah, that seemed complicated to me.
And they cost twice as much.
Yeah.
But what they did is they differentiated from 15 to 20 PC brands that were fundamentally creating about the same products.
Yep.
And that differentiation has paid off. Now, I today pay 2 to 3 times what I could pay for a PC for my Mac, and I would never choose anything else.
Yeah.
So,
like you said earlier, I will gladly do that because of what I get from it and my experience with it.
So we tend to think that option 2, like specializing,
can't be done.
Yes, that it's a stretch. Or if you look around you, what you realize is there's dozens of examples in the world of businesses that have chosen the second of the 2 options.
Yes.
And they've not joined the race to the bottom, but they've chosen differentiation. To do that means an obsession with value creation. You have to fundamentally be creating a value-driven product or service. And if you can pull that off, this isn't pie in the sky. What you can demand in the marketplace is a higher price because what you're offering is something that other people don't or can't. Mm-hmm. And I think can't, can I say can't?
You can, yes.
I prefer can't. I think we're a good example of this as a brokerage. When you as a brokerage drop your prices, which our competition has done
Definitely
aggressively over the years,
yes.
you get to a place where you're stuck in a trap. You can't provide the kind of value
yes.
through staff and leadership and guidance and training and tools that we can because they don't have the resources for it. So the race to the bottom is incredibly damaging. And I'll use one more big example of this. 10 years ago, a bunch of brokerages started saying, well, let's just do everything we can to get all the new construction.
Yeah.
And they started offering lower and lower prices to builders. And that seemed like a great idea because if you got all the builders, you got all the buy sides as well.
Yep.
And you could and then
massively increase your scale.
And you could get all the agents.
Yeah.
The problem with that is what that does as we race to the bottom is what we've created is a context now where we as an industry have largely sucked the margin potential out of new construction.
Yeah.
At this point, no builder is going to list their house for what was a premium. And when I say no, many of them still do, I guess, but that's because agents have positioned themselves very, very intentionally to provide a fundamentally different level of service.
And they started from the ground up, maybe with something smaller, and have proven where their value and their service and their experience lies so that they can earn that premium. But yeah, in the bigger conglomerates, I would say that is definitely not the case.
So I'm bouncing around, but I see this trap as this massive, multifaceted, multi-headed monster that starts with sameness. It starts with a lack of both intention and creativity to differentiate. It's harder work to do what Apple did up front.
For sure.
And then a lack of belief set that there's actually the capacity to do that. It's easier to just do what everyone else is doing and drop your price.
I think I like the word trap here the best because it really is. Maybe you don't even know it or see it right away when you're doing it. And then, you'd have to almost look off the back of the boat and go, oh, whoa, like I have just been racing to the bottom and I've got to make a fundamental choice to do something different if I want to really build a business.
I like the word choice too.
Mm-hmm. It is a choice.
I think that's the thing that we don't see early on as entrepreneurs is that difficult choice, because then it also comes with 5 to 10 years of hard work to create that differentiation. Creation of value is not that easy.
No.
Where we're going with this entire series is to demonstrate that it actually can be easy, because the differentiation is going to be about creating a tribe of advocates and relationalism. And that doesn't mean that you have to come up with the new iPhone in order to win this game.
Right. Yeah, that's the way to win and not be a commodity. Yeah, and it does take more hard work.
So what's the end of the story? The end of the story here is that if you're undifferentiated, downward forces will create the necessity to join the race to the bottom. When you're in the race to the bottom, you're trapped and you can't find your way out of that. And that's what's going on around us a bunch. Yes. If you can intentionalize value creation over sameness and price competition, you can find yourself above those downward forces. There is a space where you can operate in a fundamentally different economy where people are not just willing to, but actually gladly pay you a premium because they truly believe in the differentiation that you're providing. And there's, to some extent, even an identity towards that. I not just like what Apple does for me. I frankly look down on PC users.
Let's have the Android. No.
Well, I remember debating Jason Nicholson when he used to have an Android phone. And I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Why do you have that? No. And I think that the thing that's powerful for me on that the last visual here as you're following along is really the increased ROI on that too, right? Like that choice to differentiate based on value rather than price really does afford you the increased opportunities of ROI in your business. Like that's where how you get to that sustainable, enjoyable, profitable business. And you're not just always competing based on, I have to do so much to keep afloat. I think that ROI piece is a really powerful piece for me.
Well, what's interesting about that is it doesn't, yes, it creates the capacity for ROI, which let's break that apart. That means you get to be profitable.
Yes.
But it means you also get to take a vacation.
Yeah, because your time.
Well, yeah, because if you choose to compete on the basis of price, then you're playing a volume game.
Yes.
And if you're playing a volume game, you can get a big trophy and you can say, I sold this many millions of dollars of real estate.
But what was your life like doing that?
Correct. Because you have to do 3 or 5 times more business to get the same revenue as someone that created a higher ROI. But I think there's another ROI here, and it's got to do with the innate capacity to actually create value into the marketplace.
Yeah.
Once you join the trap or the race to the bottom, you're on the hamster wheel of needing to chase the next deal. But if you can intentionalize value, work with fewer people for more, back to Apple, if you can sell your computer for $2,000 instead of $600, you get to take that margin and not just like buy a yacht, although I think Steve Jobs had a nice yacht. I think what you get to do is reinvest into
more people that bring more value or more ideas that can change the way you do
R&D
things.
is what the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
You get to invest into R&D and come up with the new next thing.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of choosing to play in that model. So, how did I do on describing the commoditization
that was good.
trap?
I think we got through the story really well. So I think our goal next is to really dig into some of these downward forces and maybe some of the things that have changed over time from when we did this almost 10 years ago to now. And as I was looking through these, for me, I feel like some of the words are same-ish, but have been slightly tweaked. So let's dig back into those. Maybe we need to start with the old for context again, because you went through those super fast, and then go into the new.
So what were we dealing with 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think it's a good way to give some context.
Yeah, so 10 years ago, the downward forces, and there's obviously more than this, but so technology. And I remember complaining about how many things we had to log into. I mean, that was part of the ceiling of complexity as well.
Yeah.
But the technology part of this was the internet was stealing our data. Mm-hmm. And we were idiots because we were just giving it away. But the struggle we were dealing with at that point, which is connected to disintermediation, the second one, was there were a bunch of platforms ultimately that had stepped in. We'd given our data to them through MLS syndication or whatever. And the consumers were going there instead of going to our websites. Mm-hmm. And before that, they used to come to our offices.
Directly, because it was in a book.
We had the MLS book. and we had exclusive ownership of all the listings. Mm-hmm. So we were powerful. But what's interesting is that's just another sea of sameness, right? Because we had an MLS book, but so did Remax.
Yes, every office had the same MLS book. Yes.
So once again, you can see why that leads nowhere, because at some point the consumer goes, but it's better if it's online, dummy. I don't want to come to your office. I don't want to have to deal with you.
I want to do some research before I get to you. Yeah.
So Zillow, through technology and innovation, creates the context for the consumer to get better access. And now all of a sudden they don't need to come talk to us. And we were bemoaning that fact. So technology robbed us from the data. But again, all of these, you can see two sides of the coin. Innovation is creating better access and capability for the consumer, which if you're undifferentiated, becomes a downward force of commoditization. Mm-hmm. It's not a bad thing, though.
No.
Technology is good.
Yep.
The disintermediation that we were dealing with, that was fundamentally Zillow and Realtor.com at the time. Right. I think a little bit of maybe Fizbo.com. Yep. But there were options that were coming between us and the consumer.
Yeah, we couldn't get directly to the consumer anymore. Yes.
I think I listed empowered sellers. And it's really all the same. The internet was creating a context for sellers to say, I don't know that I need to list my house with you.
I can get my information on the same place you can,
for
essentially.
a lot less money. Mm-hmm. I can be on Zillow. I can be on, I think at the time they couldn't be on Realtor.com, but they could be on Zillow. Mm. And they could be on Fizbo.com and back then, I don't remember what the data was, but I think it was like 8 or 9%, as much as that of sales were FSBOs.
I want to say maybe even saw up to 10, 11, but yeah,
What's
not
fascinating
huge,
is that today we're at record low. Last year was a record low of FSBOs, and this year was even lower. And so some of our fears never really came to fruition.
We just saw it as a thing. Yes.
Well, it was a thing. I think other forces came into play, like for example,
the market conditions, right? Like the next one that you're going to bring up is specifically market conditions, right? So all of that kind of ties together with those.
Well, the market didn't get
seller empowerment.
It didn't get worse. It just got trickier. So back then, the problem was that everything was selling immediately. There was a decent amount of inventory, but everything was selling well and for full price and with multiple offers because of a bunch of tax incentives and a bunch of free money that was floating around the marketplace, low interest rates.
Lots of buyers, yep.
And then, the final force that we were dealing with was discount brokerages. So this was new. Next Gen had just showed up a few years before in the 2007.
Just a lot of flat fees, like a lot of the flat fees and a lot of the 1%ers were heavily marketing and advertising their product.
Before EXP, before all of that. We're talking about the innovators that started the flat fee brokerage model. Yeah. And those were what we were dealing with then. Now, some of those are still at play, like you're saying.
Like I said, like they're there, but they're slightly tweaked. Like even technology, let's go there. So technology is still something, but it's at a different heightened level, I guess I would say, or what people are considering the technology problem right now.
Well, so we created a little handout for everyone here. It's called the new forces of commoditization. And so I think you're referencing the first one.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay, so let's run through these. The first, and again, these are not perfect. I think there's many more. But here's a handful that I know we're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Let's just run the thesis one more time. If you are undifferentiated in today's market and you are fundamentally then needing to compete on the basis of price, here's what you're up against.
These are the things that are the downward forces.
Yeah, so AI-driven data and analysis access. So we've got to be real honest with ourselves here. Your capacity to plug a handful of comparables into a CMA and then show up and then offer guidance even on how they should stage their home, on how they should position in the marketplace relative to comps. So Zillow is now on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You can search for properties on ChatGPT. And you can search not just for, like, give me a 3-bed, 2-bath. You can say, I like properties with kitchen islands, and I like properties that face east, and I like properties that have you can get super specific because the AI can actually analyze the photos.
Yes. Go through the photos, yeah.
That's a whole new game.
I was just imagining all the prompts that a seller, thinking maybe they want to do it on their own. I was imagining all the prompts they could maybe put in and get to some of the same outcomes that you are supposedly be able to bring to the table as the advisor, right?
Which you would know because you've been in all the properties but in a market like Des Moines, there's no way you've seen all the inventory. No. And there's no way you've seen the stuff that's come on the market in the last 48 hours. But if I'm a buyer, I will, without question, have the capacity to find what I'm looking for better using my AI search tool in the next months, guys. Yeah. Significantly better than what you can provide for me. There's just no way you can remember.
Our searches are not set up in any way to do that for our buyers.
Our MLS systems. Yeah. But I don't mean our MLS systems. I mean your brain. Yeah. You physically cannot know what these things are going to be able to figure out in seconds. Mm-hmm. So I believe that's 100% one of the largest new forces of commoditization, which, every one of these, what you need to be doing in your head is raising the question, well, if I'm outperformed on that and that's driving me down, what is the solution to this?
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's the game we're playing for the next few weeks in the series.
Yep.
The second one?
Yeah, platform power handover. This one's interesting because this still involves where you mentioned earlier the disintermediation with Zillow and those presences. So the shift in what they're doing has changed, right? So the platform power.
Well, back then, the whole thing was searching, right? We had given over the data. And so buyers could now search. And that annoyed us because, frankly, at the time, we just wanted them to search on our websites. And we were all bragging about how many views we were getting on our properties. The game's different today. It's that they're actually a brokerage now. Like today, it's not just Zillow. It's Zillow, it's Redfin. There's multiple of these. And what they've done is they've captured the consumer's online attention, which is fundamentally the first point of search. Mm-hmm. The consumer starts by getting pregnant, getting married, getting divorced. And then the next thing they do is they go online. And there's no question, there's no fight, there's no debate. Zillow owns that
where
space.
they start. Yes, 100%.
And south of that, you can go through the list of realtor.com, homes.com. But none of these now are just trying to own search for advertising's sake, which was the game.
Mm-hmm.
They're now working to own search for the capacity to capture the consumer and sell them to you.
And sell them to the realtors. Yes.
Which is back to disintermediation, but at a much, much higher scale. Zillow is a behemoth. They're a brokerage, and they're charging you 40% referral fees. And we've given up the fight of trying to compete with them on the search side. But if your business is fundamentally dependent upon that, and they change their model, or they decide to become a brokerage with agents that they hire,
they kind of get to have that control now because you're dependent on that. Yeah.
We've handed over control in that regard. And I don't bemoan that. I think if you go back 10 years, my speech on this was let them own that space if you own the relationship with the people.
100%.
But if you don't, which again is where the series goes, then you're just commoditized. They own the search, and you're going to end up, a slave is too big of a word, but you're going to end up dependent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that like you said, the solutions, when you hear all of these, this is not to feel negative, but this is like, think about how you can get through it.
Well, and I just, the caveat on that is I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with Zillow leads.
Yeah.
I think what we have to do is leverage the reality of the situation to buy the leads if we're doing that, and then own the relationship
in the long term. Yeah, and let's be honest, I think this next one really speaks to like the last year and what consumers are now seeing in the media about realtors specifically, right? So consumer skepticism and trust collapse, I think this is definitely real. It's not about sea of sameness or realtor. I think there really is a real mistrust potentially with our industry.
Well, I'd start by saying it's not just our industry. I think that there's a general mistrust of not bureaucracy, of
from the organizational level, right?
Yeah. Well, I just don't think we don't trust the medical industry right now. We don't trust politicians. We don't trust. So institutional trust is broken down, and we've seen this before as a society. It happened in the 60s and the 70s. And it'll happen again, but we've got to understand right now, we are in an environment, a global environment, where people, frankly, aren't trusting of large institutions, brands, companies. So we think there's a cabal, and they've taken over the world, and all the companies are just stealing our money. And so, I don't know, maybe we should become communists. But I mean, this is a zeitgeist of thinking.
Absolutely fundamental breakdown, yeah.
This wasn't a thing 20 years ago.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
And we can go back to COVID, and we can look at why and whatever. But the point here is that, yes, as a realtor, we've got to understand that our industry, like many others, is under attack.
Under scrutiny, yep.
Lawsuits against NAR. I mean, even within our environment, we've got a lot of agents saying, like, why do we have NAR? But the same is true of all these lawsuits against major brokerages.
Yeah.
And so, yes, as a consumer, there was a time in the 80s where if you were a part of a big company or a big brand or a big institution, that was packaged trust.
And it was good, like you are the professional. You
Correct.
Automatically got seen as that professional, and that was a good thing.
Well, you have a blazer, and your blazer has a little lapel on it, and that lapel tells me that you're trustworthy.
Yeah.
That is not the case anymore.
No.
Trust is no longer packaged through institutionalized. You don't get to buy it through your membership to NAR. Mm-hmm. And not just that, I think there is an there's an institutional mistrust.
In general.
And so that is, yes, absolutely a downward force. If you are nothing but a realtor, then you must understand that no longer has inherent value in the consumer's mindset.
There is no differentiation there, right? And again, this next one too is something that we brought up before, is the amount of realtors, and I don't feel like that's changed. Like you said, it's even higher now than what you mentioned earlier. And I think we thought we'd see a lot more go away with some of the industry changes, and it's happening, but not happened yet. So I think there are too many agents, and that they're not really all that great at what they do with all these changes and keeping up.
Yeah, and we have more agents today than we had 10 years ago when we were having this conversation and saying that competition was high. Mm-hmm. I think what's changed in this environment, the 80-20 rule is the 90-10 rule now.
I wrote that down too.
I think it's a wonderful time to be a great realtor. It's not a great time to be any one of the other 1.3 million. Mm-hmm. So I think what's different, and it goes back to institutional trust and skepticism, is that there's even more realtors and there's even more bad realtors. Mm-hmm. And that's a major problem, because if that's the zeitgeist or the headwinds or the general sort of environment into which we're playing, then you can understand that there's significant reasons for consumers to be untrusting of you by default. That's a terrible thing to say, but I just think you got to. Okay.
There's reality there. I feel.
Well, we're willing to say it about car salesmen. We're willing to say that cars and insurance salesmen and vacuum salesmen that knock on your door. All of those people were happy to say, yeah, well, they're just slimy salespeople. But when people say that about realtors, somehow we take offense. But stop and look at the 1.5 million realtors and ask yourself, well, hold on, if 90% of them are selling like
one or two houses a year at most.
The bottom half are selling less than one house per year. How good can they possibly be?
They are not
and then look at the environment in terms of their training and their guidance and their oversight. Most of them are working for virtual brokerages or brokerages where they have absolutely no oversight or control. And that they are cutting corners and dropping the ball with the consumer. I think this is just
there truly is a lack of professionalism, right?
100%. And that is the brand that you are carrying. I'm for NAR and I'm for Century 20.
Professional ideas, right, as a whole.
But you got to be honest.
Yes.
You got to be honest about how you're being viewed. And then where that leads is, okay, so if that's the reality of how we're viewed as a collective, what is the work to be done to ensure that I am not an undifferentiated product or service and I'm not viewed just as one of those?
Yeah.
That's the work.
Yep, absolutely. And this next one is interesting to me. This one is a new one for me. It wasn't something that we really talked about at all before. I feel like the social space, right? So the brand and the social space has changed quite a bit. I feel like when I first thought about this, we're really good at the change in social media and being the first to jump on that. But really, there is really no differentiation, and the amount of attention that people give to social media is completely different. It's not a space that you can win and like build your brand in that space in the same way. It's very different.
How do I say this lovingly? No one gives a flying what about your personal brand.
Yeah.
And every teenager now is building their brand, and it's saturated, guys.
Yes.
And there's always opportunity in marketplaces, and there was a great opportunity in social media years ago. But to get in there and get people's attention right now is incredibly challenging, because it's just, frankly, every kid, every soccer mom, every entrepreneurial whoever, everyone is in there building their personal brand at this point. I mean, So it is a highly saturated environment. Yes. Number one, just to get airspace there is challenging. Yeah. But I think more than that, people are burnt out.
Yes. No, I mean, I was going to say, let's be honest. I choose not to look at social, and most times, I'm like, I don't even want to. I'm moving on from that.
Well, and it's not just, okay, so yes, there's so many forces here. I mean, one is it's saturated. Two is we're done. We're just disinterested. Increasingly, we just want to do coffee with someone and have a great chat.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think the other part of it is the authenticity of it. I mean, the number of people I've seen walking over a nature bridge or whatever, and you're like, well, hold on, you're by yourself. Who set the camera up? This is ridiculous. We're starting to call BS on all this. Okay, so you're crying in your car about something that happened, but wait, you pulled out the phone and filmed
you recorded
yourself.
It. It's so weird.
Well, so what is the consumer experiencing as they watch you as a realtor talk about the challenge you're having with a client? Or we're trying to play authenticity and we're trying to play personal brand, but it's a saturated space. And I think we're all a little burnt out. So that's a problem, because part of what we're trying to do is create top of mind awareness.
And maybe a brand, right? Like, this is who I am. This is what I stand for.
And your success in real estate is directly proportionate to the number of people who, when they think of real estate, think of you. So we've got to get in front of people. The issue is the opportunity we had to do that through this new medium was marvelous. And increasingly, it's possible that playing in that space, number one, isn't going to have the same returns, but number two, could actually sometimes be unhelpful.
Yeah, could be harmful to your brand, maybe even. This next one, we got a couple more to get through. This one, the first word that comes to my mind is Amazon, right? Like, people are so used to speed, expedience, and convenience, right? So I think this is something that we really have to think about as realtors. How do we overcome that instantaneous, the ability that we've developed to, like, just that quick and
so convenient. We called it rising consumer expectation of convenience. You said Amazon, I would add Domino's. And what I mean by Domino's is not just how quick the pizza
tracking.
comes. I mean the tracking system.
Yeah.
I mean, we are selling people's largest asset for 6% or whatever it might be. And our technology and our communication capabilities, frankly, as an industry, are archaic.
Right. We haven't caught up.
I order a $10 pizza and I immediately get access to an app that shows me literally I can see the pizza.
Right.
I can see a picture of what it's
getting
going to
made
be.
right now.
It tells me where it is. It tells me when it's showing up. I get a thank you afterwards. It's brilliantly done. And so we have now experienced in all sorts of marketplaces around us as consumers, we've experienced organizations and industries really upping the ante on the experience economy, on creating remarkable outcomes for people in some of the fundamentals, like just communicating.
Yes. Where you're at in the process.
Unfortunately, in the real estate world, what we're dealing with is a bunch of rugged individuals, back to our first discussion,
Yep.
and a bunch of brokerages that have lost control of their environment, meaning they've joined the race to the bottom. They've done anything they can to buy as many realtors as they possibly can. And they can't say to realtors, you need to get your act together and do a better job on communication, because the realtors will just go somewhere cheaper. Well, that's a fundamental industry problem.
That's a problem.
And it's why the industry is not advancing in the same way that other spaces are. And I think we all need to look in the mirror on that and recognize that some of the reason why people want to pay less for your services is because your services aren't always worth what they ought to be. What is the consumer demanding? I'll go back 10 years, 20 years ago, we were complaining about Zillow taking the data, but the consumer wanted the data.
Yeah.
And we were keeping it in a
better.
book.
Yeah.
I think Domino's is better.
Yeah.
And I think we have to figure out how to do that.
That level of expectation of where you are at in the process, right? Up your game in the communication in the process.
So the fundamental here is that our consumers have been exposed to better experiences than what our industry is currently providing. And if all we're doing is, you don't need an app, guys.
Yeah.
But if you don't have an app, then you need to pick up the phone and call people.
Yeah.
Because what they're expecting is proper updates. What they're expecting is to have access to the information at their fingertips. And I don't think tech is the solution to that, but I think the new set of expectations is the new challenge that you have to meet.
And you have to realize that you're playing in those new set of expectations, right? And I see all of these as, oh my gosh, I feel so much opportunity in all of these
100%.
of what you can do to change these downward forces. Last one, wrapping this up, is new construction discounting. So we did mention new construction earlier, kind of in that realm of even just with brokerages buying all the new construction, right? But the new construction space has changed a little bit here.
Well, and maybe that one should be expanded. I just think it's that brokerages have maybe the race to the bottom. They've achieved it. Well done. Well done.
You're there.
You have reached
the bottom.
The bottom. You've bought the builders by offering as cheap as you possibly can in order to get the inventory, in order to attract the realtors. And you've attracted the realtors with the cheapest possible prices. And now you have no ROI or investment money for R&D to actually coach or train or guide or direct. And we're all virtual now, and your agents are all around the country selling one or two houses. Yeah, we've effectively hit the bottom on the industry model. Right. And what's beautiful is that we as an organization haven't, and we're not alone in this. There's plenty of great brokerages out there that have chosen not to join the race to the bottom.
To hold the line and compete on value.
And there's a ton of, maybe what's worth saying here is that brokerages, agents, I'm talking to you guys now, learn from your predecessors. The brokerages around you have hit the bottom sooner than you will.
Yeah.
But you're next.
If you don't.
If you don't. If you don't understand the forces of commoditization and you don't position yourself to be undifferentiated in the marketplace, which we've done for the last 10 years very effectively,
very well.
Hence the point of the series,
yeah.
Then you should expect the same thing. And we've seen that. And kudos to you guys for being smart enough to recognize that cheaper isn't always better.
Yeah.
We don't want to pay for things we don't need, and we don't want to pay for value we're not getting. But value is the key word here. What you're looking for from us is better value, not just cheaper.
Yep.
What your consumer is looking for from you is better value, not just cheaper.
Yep.
But you got to look around and recognize the forces that are pushing everyone else to the race to the bottom. And then you must take action and ownership for what you need to do in order to differentiate in that environment. In 10 years from now, it'll be a different set of forces, but here's what I can guarantee you. 90% of people will be the same, and they will be on the race to the bottom.
Yep.
And a few will be distinguishing themselves and separating themselves from the pack and creating. I love the picture again, the graphic.
Yes.
The capacity to float above the forces
Same.
of commoditization.
Yeah. No, same. And I think that is just, you have to realize it, you have to see it, and then you do have to make the choice to go take action. And I see so much opportunity, even in, like I said, in these downward forces, that it can be done. You just have to make the choice.
You said something interesting, and maybe this will be my last thought on this. I could talk about these ideas forever, just because I just love, there's something poetic and beautiful about seeing underneath the hood and recognizing the forces that are actually at play behind all the little decisions that we're making every day. But you said something interesting. In every one of these, you see opportunity.
I do.
It's exactly the right point. The right point here is that there's always going to be change, and we tend to view the next disruption or change or annoying situation. The best case example of this is, COVID was a good one. Mm-hmm. COVID was for sure a way that we were all going to die and go out of business. And then it actually turned out to be a pretty unique opportunity.
Some great opportunities.
When you had the eyes to see it. The same was true of the changes to buyer's agency recently. Massive disruption. Oh my gosh, it's going to kill all of our businesses, except for those of us that were ahead.
Yes.
And leverage that as an opportunity to recognize that buyer's agency is a smart move for buyers.
And it was, yes, I totally see that as a win for everybody. Yeah.
I think every industry change or disruption is going to naturally in the marketplace produce fear and struggle and the perception of danger. But every one of those new quote unquote downward forces, if you can find yourself on the winning side of it, actually produces an upward force.
Absolutely.
For you as an undifferentiated and value-driven provider in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So I think, the game is to always be, where we're going. How do we then position ourselves as different and above? How do we obsess about value? But then how do we take every one of these new challenges that show up? And the first thing you need to do when something terrible happens in the marketplace or the world or around you is go, one, everybody's experiencing this.
Yeah. And what of this is in my control?
So then two, how does this create an opportunity for me to do what the 90% won't do? And that's always what it comes down to. The difference between mediocrity or failure and massive success isn't the 90% of things that are all the same. It's the small things that some or most won't do that you're willing to do in order to position yourself ahead. So closing thoughts from you on the downward forces of commoditization.
No, I think I'm not immune to seeing the negative side of this too, but I do really, when I listen to all of these and really think about them again, it's just the amount of opportunity that there is there, and you can choose to go get it. So I'm super excited to continue this mini series and to dig into some of our next concepts too. So go check it out and follow along with us.
Our next episode is a little economic as well. We're going to jump into the two
economies, two decisions,
which we've chatted about quite a bit as a team, but always I think it's one of the most fundamental. It's the first pivot point and shift. If these are the economic forces that are in our way, then the next topic we're going to cover is how we begin the process of shifting into an entrepreneurial mindset that's going to position us for success and winning.
So stay tuned. Follow along.
Thank you for joining us today. For more episodes, resources, and show notes, head to morethanmorepodcast.com.